Hey guys, it's Matt. If you're driving or just listening, unless thumbnail images of a Star Trek episode that's probably over 30 years old is one of the greatest things in your life, you don't need to see this. I'll shuffle some different images in and out for anybody who wants to watch as a video. And re-recording this segment to emphasize this is a conversation about retrocausality in general, using a Star Trek episode. When I was recording before, I'm starting to talk about the Star Trek episode. Half the people probably turning it off like, who cares? A Star Trek episode. No, this is a much bigger conversation on retrocausality, using the final episode of Star Trek, The Next Generation. That is the biggest, grandest, greatest presentation of retrocausality in film, media, movie history. I can't believe I haven't talked about it before now, and I don't know, maybe people have, but I don't think so. So we have to use the episode to talk about retrocausality, and the bigger issue is how we are being used in this sense, potentially a retrocausal sense in doing what the creeps want. That's the bigger issue here, just showing the image leading in because of Borg, Locutus of Borg, Picard, when he was turned, we had the right eye symbolism, of course. But this is the episode where Q makes his final presentation. And again, I need to discuss the episode, of course, and lay the groundwork. I don't know. I'll try to keep it under 3 or 4 minutes, but then I want to expand the conversation. There's something going on with the truth community. You know, I've said it over and over, how we're being used, played, and manipulated to accomplish something for the dark here or the creeps here. We all agree we've been used and we continue. The community continues to be used, but there's also this retrocausal element that's coming into play. I can't get it out of my head, and of course, thank you to Vanessa VA for talking about the retrocausality issue more than anybody else over the past year and a half. It is absolutely something that needs to be considered. So let's not jump ahead too much. Let's talk. Let me present what happened from a retrocausality perspective in this Star Trek episode so you can see how it was presented here. You don't need to have seen the episode. I'll walk you through it, and then we'll try to apply any potential lessons to how this community is being used and played and manipulated. And I mean, guys, when I say that, people send me all sorts of links and things, and you know, now a lot of them are off YouTube because YouTube will censor them, but BitChute, Odyssey, Brighteon, and a lot of these stuff, I look at it, I just go, you know, what they're trying to pass around the truth community, it's just we're being played. They want us to believe this. They want us to believe that. They want us to take the narrative in this direction. They want us to take the narrative in that direction. I mean, these platforms like Brighteon, Odyssey, you know, I've been over this with Rob. It seems like, these bastions of free speech because you can't speak freely on YouTube. It's all part of the play. It's all part of the act. It's all part of the script. It's just a place to put potentially the most creative people here, or the generator beings, into smaller pens, so what they believe and what they propagate, it's easier to get to them. I don't know. It's not as simple as these wonderful altruistic platforms exist just for us. They're probably owned, when you look at the fine print, they're probably all owned by YouTube anyway. So, just saying, the first lesson here, before we get into the real complicated technical details, is when you're told something is going on, just pause before you maybe it's the system wanting us to make something go viral, if you see what I mean. Okay, forget everything I said, clean slate. I'm going to explain the final episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. That would have been presented in, I don't know, around 93 or so. I'll present it in a way assuming you didn't see it at all, and you know just a little bit about what's going on here. So it's the final episode. This is Q, the character Q's final test for humanity. This character Q is like a godlike being, can snap his fingers and have planets disappear, and I mean, just basically can do whatever he wants. He's very much the trickster or Loki character, just stirs up mischief, is certainly not seen as the creator of the universe. He's omnipotent, or can play and do whatever he wants in this universe, but he didn't create himself. So anyway, he's always constantly causing trouble for Picard. He appears and he allows Captain Picard, who is the William Shatner of the Next Generation, in this episode, he allows him to jump through time to 3 different timelines. The timeline of the present, where he's on the USS Enterprise, the spaceship. The future, where he no longer has his command, but he can get access to spaceships. And the past, where it's his first week or 2 on the Enterprise as a younger man. So apparently, there's an anomaly out in this thing that they call the Devron system. This thing is growing. It's like a nebula. I don't know what it is. Like a combination of a nebula and a black hole. This nefarious thing is growing out in space, and potentially could become a real problem for Earth. Let's just leave it at that. And as Picard moves through time into different bodies or different experiences along his timeline, they find that the anomaly, or this thing that's growing that could affect life on Earth, is much larger in the past. In the present, it's the size of Yankee Stadium, but in the past, it's the size of, it's the size of Jupiter, whatever they crashed the Cassini probe in out there in the tuna fish can. It's grows over time. So Picard then is sent into the future, and he says, we need to go get a ship. We need to go stop this thing. Now it's bigger in the past. That's one of the keys here. From the future, when as an old man Picard there, pictured in the middle, he, I guess he calls in a favor to Beverly Crusher, who has a medical ship, and they don't believe him. They don't believe anything will be out there, Worf or Riker or whatever. They don't believe him. They're like, we're going to get out there, there'll be nothing there. So then that's what happens. They get out to where this anomaly should be, that's growing into the past. They get there in the future, there's nothing there. So, in some way, it's been a while since I've seen it. Overall, I've seen it about 7 or 8 times. I haven't seen it in a year or year and a half. They scan the area in the same way, using the same tachyon beams or whatever they do. And so there's nothing there. And in the future, they scan with this beam, with that beam, do this, do that, do that. And that it turns out, to make a long story 2-part series short, the scan that they perform in the future causes the anomaly, which is related to some sort of antimatter that's inverse time. They try to describe it. Most things in Star Trek, or a lot of things in Star Trek, they say have at least a baseline of scientific credibility that they stand upon. But I don't know. Antimatter, anti-time, and the point is, the Picard that's jumped into the future sends a beam out into nothing. There's nothing there. It just should be there. Well, let's scan for it. We need to find it. We need to stop it. Well, he creates it in the future. And then as he jumps back to the present, which is then the past from the future's perspective, and his past, and there's 3 timelines he's jumping around on. It's growing. So Q actually takes him for a ride back through time, and billions of years ago, the thing's just gigantic, hovering over Earth. It's just humongous, hovering over Earth, and basically tells Picard that the anomaly you created, look what it is in the past. It grows backwards through time. Oh, it's going to present life on Earth. Of course, it's just Darwin bullcrap reinvigorated, or with new life breathed into it in a different sense. So they show life on Earth instead of these amoebas coming together, whatever they are, the amino acids coming together on the jumping up on themselves. Then they don't get together. So by Picard starting this anomaly, all life on Earth never comes to be, because of course Darwin and the scientists are correct that we of course came from little amoebas and things floating around in muddy pools. I mean, that makes perfect sense, but let's just go with that for now. I'm not sure how confusing that was, but for anybody confused, let me just break it down in the most simplest ways right now, just for 1 minute and a half. The Picard in the future, the old man that goes out to look for the anomaly, he scans and does all sorts of things. He creates it, and then it gets larger backwards through time. If the Picard, or the old man Picard of the future, goes out and he sees there's no anomaly, if he does nothing, if he just turns around and goes home, then it would never have been created, and it wouldn't be larger in the past. There'd be nothing. But he's meddling where there's nothing to meddle in. He's looking for something that's not there. He's sending all sorts of scans. I don't know how they present it in the show. It's been a while since I've seen it. He creates it by looking for it. And then as Picard jumps back to the, quote, present of the show, it's a certain size. And then the past of the show, it's gigantic. And then again, Q showed a billion years ago, it's even larger. So it's the ultimate presentation of retrocausality. He created it in the future. And most of the problems that are happening are the present and the past. And each timeline, Picard coordinates the enterprises of each timeline to get together. And, obviously it's the last episode. You can probably guess things kind of turn out pretty well. They don't all just die and humanity goes away. But the point is very intriguing that Picard, meddling in the future, or at least in his timeline of the old man, he's it must be here. It must be here. Just thinking within those bookends of he never in a million years did he consider that this thing may exist in the past and it doesn't exist here in the future. Now, he should have considered that because as a starship captain in Enterprise, and they've seen aliens, and he's seen a lot of things. He should probably, of all people, Picard should be able to think outside the bookends. If you say he's presented as an old senile man in this episode, which he kind of is, well then Data and Geordi should have been able to think outside the bookends with anti-time or whatever. So it should have occurred to him when they got there and there's nothing there, and he knows it gets larger in the past. Then for these people, it's kind of hard for us to think that way. But again, this is supposed to be the captain of the Enterprise. So, but he meddles. They create it, and this thing works backwards through time, and it makes sense that at some point it's going to overwhelm the Earth at some point in our past. If that happens, your grandfather never met your grandmother. We don't exist, and it's presented in a very interesting fashion. The point of all this is something here the concepts here apply to us in our situation. I don't know how, and it relates to how we're being used, played, and manipulated. I know that's a stretch, and I don't know what is going to be solved in this presentation. But let me just start with the basics coming up. I know we're being used and played and manipulated. Maybe this will be a multi-part presentation. Matt, it's going to be a multi-part because you haven't figured out jack shit. Yeah, probably. This probably ain't going to happen on the fly. So we have to start with the basics. But I guarantee this is not a waste of time. This is getting to the governing dynamics of what's really going on here, not the bullshit that floats around BitChute and Brighteon. Okay, with issues this big, it's best to start with the absolute basics. In this episode, Picard, the older Picard, was used, played, and manipulated to go out, to believe there was something out there, to go chase something, and then create it, something that affects his past in a much more dangerous and dramatic way. Picard was used. Okay, he was manipulated by Q. It could be argued here and there, but he was used because, in fact, the proof is in the pudding. He created the anomaly. Now, let's just start talking a little bit more about us. Is there anybody listening to the sound of my voice that doesn't believe we are being used, played, and manipulated? Have been used for almost a 15-year period, or back to the big event in 2001. We've been used, and we continue to be used, played, and manipulated. All segments of this, quote, truth community. Is there anybody that doesn't believe that? Is there anybody that just thinks, oh no, we're exposing truth and they're terrified of us? Does anybody really think that? Well, Matt, look at the YouTube censorship. You have to use your hobo code. We're getting close. They don't want us talking about certain things, and they're terrified of us. Okay, the YouTube censorship, it's part of the script. It seems like, oh, we're exposing this and that. It's all part of the script as they run this play and they do the revelation of the method. Let me just ask you this. So, I back in the Wild West of YouTube, 2011 to 10, 11, 12, 13, where me or Russian vids and whoever, you could just post endless videos about the Robin Williams movie, Captain Hook, that event, this event, endless breakdowns of fake events, no problem, no censorship. They had no ability. Just think about it. This huge control structure that had technology. I'm reading the Judy Wood book, which is pretty interesting, by the way. I'll report on that very soon. That has technology probably 50 years in advance. The technology that took down the 7-Eleven was 100 years beyond anything that we could even fathom as anything that has ever been shared. It relates and ties into the energy strength that was created by Hurricane Aaron that was off the coast. You don't think they had the ability to censor us? See how that's just not really working? They had no ability to censor us in 2011, 12, 13. They just, they have their backroom meetings. We'd like to shut these guys down. They're exposing us. What are we going to do, little George Soros? What are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. We're powerless. Oh, sure. No. It was the act of the play. In that scene was to let this community push this stuff out. Of course it could have been shut down about a decade ago, because it's so obvious that whatever we in this community were talking about or, quote, exposing in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, where there was no censorship whatsoever, we could say whatever we want, no need for hobo code, post clips of a laughing Robbie Bobby. We post all that stuff and no problem, because we know it could have been shut down. Means we have to assume then that as it's played out, the censorship now, it's part of a very. Do they ever make long-term plans? Is it just, do they ever plan more than like 1 or 2 quarters ahead? Yeah, they sometimes, maybe it seems like 50 to 100 years ahead. So their plan is very long term. It's hard to see. I can't see it, but I have to assume it's very long term. So this era now where we can't talk and everybody's ending up in smaller and smaller pens, smaller and smaller platforms where whatever we share is just between and amongst ourselves, which it doesn't get out as easily as if we could just share whatever you wanted to on YouTube. But I don't know exactly why, but I have to assume that it's part of a long-term plan. Are you going to assume the opposite? No, Matt, that means we're really making strides and we're ending up on news system platforms and smaller pens. No, it's part of their long-term plan. If people are on Brighteon and people are on BitChute and they just, we're really exposing everything and they're terrified of us, and as we run around this little pen and share videos, if you really think they're quaking in their boots, I mean, you're really, I'm sorry, you're missing it. What we're doing, most of us in this community, and I've been a victim of it too, we're following their plans. Okay, my goal in these types of big thinking exercises is to figure out how to get off the track, okay, the rails. But I'm not going to deny what's so obvious at this point. We're dealing with something that does not operate inside like human confines. It's alien, the dark here, that tries to keep a human being from understanding its spiritual self. It is alien per the definition of the word. Per the definition of the word. It is alien. It doesn't mean little green men. So, its planning is inhuman. Its patience is inhuman. So no, this means I'm not going to think that, with these sets of new videos coming out of BitChute, where more Pfizer and Moderna executives are exposing that this is bad and that's bad and this is going to happen and that's going to happen. No, I don't believe it's just good people they're trying to expose to. I believe it's all part of the greater plan. That's part of finally seeing it and finally getting off the rails. So, Matt, that doesn't make sense. So there's an ex-executive in a pharma that comes out and talks about injury that can be caused by renting the movie Action Jacksonation. Is it, even if it's real and all these injuries are even if it's all completely legitimate, then if the system is allowing it, then they want the information out there. Like we've talked about, we know for a fact they want a stable percentage of this population to not rent the movie, Action Jacksonation. They don't want 100% compliance on that. We know for sure they don't want 100%, because just when maybe there's too many people getting it, then they'll present some data on injury and this and that and this. We know they don't want 100% compliance. I'm not really prepared to get it, and there's no point in me going into that argument now. But I've been over that so many times. We know, just like probably in the polls, if this is assuming they really allowed people to vote, but obviously it's all a script. Hillary against Trump. Trump will go in. It doesn't matter which one. They're both puppets of the system. But let's just say they want to make it look legitimate. So when look, Hillary's poll numbers are up too high. Well, bring the sickness issue out to the forefront. Have her give a speech where she just coughs. Have her give a bunch of speeches where she just coughs in the microphone, and then on camera spits out 2 gigantic green balls, like giving birth to the Lochnar, spitting these green balls, and then Matt takes it, and all the other truthers take it, and we run with these videos, just doing exactly, we're not exposing anything, we were doing exactly what the system wanted. It's no different now. I think we have to change our thinking up a bit. The most important thing we can do, in my opinion, is to understand how we are being used by this system, just as another pawn, and to throw a wrench into it. We don't have that figured out yet. Go back to the Picard, the Star Trek. If Picard and Data and these greatest minds, they were in the future and they're about to send out all their beams to detect this anomaly that's not there, by sending out their beams and trying to detect it, they created it, which started to harm the past. If they would have thought big, which they should be able to, roaming around the galaxy for 20-some years, and say, wait a second, you're jumping between 3 timelines, Picard. If we do something here because of the principles of anti-time or the reverse antimatter or tachyon fields, we might be causing it in some way. You did say, Picard, that it's larger in the past. They should have been able to come up with that. We should be able to come up with how we're being used. And it starts with noticing the obvious manipulations. I'm sorry. All this stuff came to me 8-10 months ago. And Matt, look, Pfizer executive says this. Moderna Pfizer executive exposes this. How me taking that to my family? Look what this Pfizer executive is saying about how this is bad, that is bad. How that helps, I don't know, but at least I know it's an intentional manipulation. It's not, oh, look what we got on them. Oh, we're going to expose this. They're terrified. No, they're not. We've been played. And the idea is, how are we being played? How are we helping them in this community, potentially as the ultimate, maybe sounds arrogant, generator beings that help them shape the reality and shape the sick society the way they want? I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have the governing dynamics of the metaphysical universe figured out by the end of this video, but we need to at least start going down going into these places to find answers, not doing the same old horse race bullshit. And so let's just do an exercise in thinking big. An exercise in thinking big along these lines. Vanessa VA's presentation of the singularity already having occurred in the future, and per retrocausality, the things that are already done in the future, that's why people are acting in certain ways. Huge thinking. It doesn't matter if it's all right or mostly wrong. The thinking was absolutely necessary, and we have to continue to think along those same lines. Okay, forget everything I said. Let's just start from the basics with a whole new exercise in thinking big. Let's go back again to the shape of the Earth. Has that ever come up in this community ever? It's new, I know, but let's go back to that. Now, to me, it's not just less filling or tastes great. It's just 2 possible shapes. There's other things that Truth Community has put into place. Now, to me, what is going on here at this point, I don't mean to take something so complicated and make it so simple, but it is like basically obvious to me that the reality itself, where we are, can present basically whatever anybody wants to find I was just back and forth with paradigms on this, and we're going to continue to email, hopefully back and forth, expand on this, but this isn't anything new if you've been here a while. It can kind of, the whole breadcrumb thing, and it can show you, the reality itself somehow can show you what you want to find or what you expect to find. So again, I'm going to relate this back to what we're trying to solve here, and that's going to take a while. But so the people that want to believe in Stephen Hawking, they have all the data in the world that says, that of course, that supports teraquads of data and scientific and measurement and perfect mathematics that proves the heliocentric model. But then this community popped up hardcore about 12 years ago that went out and did all their laser testing across lakes, and that 8 inches per mile square is bullcrap, and they do this and that, and they've come up with all sorts of information that proves their point. And here we go, kingdom of heaven again, let's do it. Who has claim? All have claim. Who has claim? None have claim. The reality is giving both sides what it wants to lock into their position. It's giving it to them at the same time, and the information it's giving them is at odds with itself. That's not possible in a real world. So if you back up even further, what does the wise man or woman do? Saying, well, wait a second. It's not about running lasers across lakes and this and that. And it's about saying, wait a second, at the fundamental level of reality, what is it doing? How is it showing both sides what it wants to see, what it wants to find? Back up again, and look down and see the governing dynamics. I guess I've seen the damn John Nash movie too much recently. The governing dynamics of this place is it will show you what you want to find. That's not possible in a real world. So if you apply that, let's apply that to this thinking exercise here. Okay, we talked about with emails back and forth paradigms. I might have talked about this in the past, but the fact that the creeps will actually potentially manipulate the shape of the reality by using the collective conscience to feed back the shape of the reality. So it could be something they need to do to escape here. It might be a game that they play. But it's quite possible, and this explanation is as good as any, that in 1400, 1500, whatever, Columbus, you're going to fall off. Christopher, it's all splat turf. It's all flat. You're going to fall off. That they put that, and the generator beings all know. Everybody knew in 1550, farming their field, and Braveheart is coming down from the hills. Unite the clans! Unite the clans! They all knew it was flat, of course. So it was. The reality morphed to the shape of what the collective conscious thought? Yeah, probably. Why not? Think big for a change. That might be completely wrong, but at least I'm not going back to the same stupid little reality bookends. See, but then they would have let's play a game. Let's introduce completely made up stories about Ptolemy, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and we're going to get all these generator beings. We need to experiment with the generator beings to see if they can actually affect reality and how they affect reality. Then we'll feed that into our Whopper computer, which was an abacus in 1850, but now it's something much, much sicker and much grander. Or that's not the best word, but we're going to get them all now to believe it's round. And then the characteristics and the math will actually start to show that based on what all the generator collective consciousness believes. Matt, they played a game with humanity. It actually affected the measurements and what reality was based on what they got people to believe over a several 100-year period. Maybe. If I get a bunch of chips in front of me, I'm not going to push them all on that number and say, I got it all figured out. I'm saying maybe. It's an exercise in thinking big. It's this type of thinking that, and why would they need to do that? Well, what's the whole presentation of maybe they are trapped here, these Melvin P. creeps? What's the whole presentation of space about? We know how ridiculous they present it to us, and we're like, nobody can go anywhere. And but see, if they can get, potentially they believe, as the Whopper computer evolved from an abacus into Joshua, they believe that we can get enough of these generator beings to actually believe we can actually get that tin can piece of shit down at space, double space Vin Diesel triple X to go to Mars. If we can get enough people to truly believe it, we can actually maybe do it. And we can then get the heck out of it. Maybe they're going to use it as a way to get themselves out of here. Don't limit your thinking. I'm not saying I have this figured out. I'm going to put my chips on that number. I'm saying it's this kind of thinking. And I don't even know if I explained that right. Like, it is potentially a closed system. And okay, we are spiritual beings. We, what they call die, there might be ways they try to keep us here, but we have the ability to get out of here. Okay, we all know that. The creeps might be very different from us. They might be more trapped here. It's what Tony calls it, the different types of incarnations, whatever. They might be like, we need to get these beings. We can, if enough of these mofos believe that you can actually travel out of here on Elon Musk's USS Minnow, we can actually, they'll create it, and we can get ourselves out of here, or they'll experiment with that. Who knows? I don't know, but this type of thinking will get us somewhere potentially. Not the same old, oh, look what happened on BitChute. The Pfizer executives exposing new harmful thing. No, that's the fucking rat race and the fucking hamster wheel that they want you on. But Matt, how does the retrocausality come into play? I don't know. Who knows? But if you sense there's something there, then it's worth keeping on the table. And if something that's this complicated, you just go back to the absolute basics. So the idea would be, are we doing something now, we generator beings in this community, are we doing something now that's actually rippling back and affecting the past? And I don't know, but what screams out is potentially making the creeps here that pull push the buttons and pull the levers, everything we do now potentially makes them stronger, not just now, but potentially in the past. Maybe it does ripple back. And I don't have this presentation all figured out, but it would start with calling them the same names of pedestal not appreciation, but pedestal placing, controllers, elite, all this stuff. Everything we've done in this community has been to push them up to a higher place, to continuously breathe life, that they actually have the power that they say they have. Maybe there's a retrocausality component to that, where it's like a sick loop. Then they get more powerful back through time, which then makes our situation now more oppressive. Then we talk about them as the powers that be times a million. Then that makes them more powerful in the past. That makes our situation now more impressive. And it's like a loop or Ouroboros. Or I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't know. But there's something to it. Vanessa VA said, the guy down your guy down your cul-de-sac, or your sister that you don't recognize anymore, she's acting funny now because of a decision she makes or will make or has already made, if you want to put it that way, in the future. People are out of their minds now because of something that's already happened, whether you want to call it the singularity or not. So, these are pretty big issues, guys, but it's not about, we know we're not going to be able to take some document, run down the street and wake up our cousin or our brother. It doesn't work that way. In fact, in many ways, that's exactly what it's wanted us to do. That has been our role, our perfect role for them, to be the boy that cried wolf. And we've been played, including myself, we've all been played to a level of which we can't possibly fathom. They're playing Star Trek, the three-dimensional chess, and we think we're playing checkers, and we think we're winning, and they're laughing all the way to the metaphysical bank. The idea is to get a sense as to how we're being used and to shut the damn spigot off. Any other exercise in this truth community, what's the point? Exposing stuff to wake up your sister? Come on. Let's start to think a little bit bigger. This is not easy shit to figure out. Of course not. I don't think I'm going to get it done by the end of the video. But I know this is a little bit closer to thinking along the lines that we need to be thinking on, not running over to Brighteon. I paused for a few minutes just to think through a few things, and it does come back to like a giant game being played here, potentially. it always goes back to this to me. Like there's these creeps are playing their role, no doubt. They're playing a role here, whatever this level of creep is, or whatever. And they're most of them are probably not even aware of it, but they're playing a role. We are in this game, and there's certain rules here, and there's certain things that need to be done, and it's almost like that one of the main descriptors of how the game works. These beings over here, like people like you, people like me, you and me, yes, we mind wipe. We come in, but we come in, Tommy, the deaf, dumb, and blind kid. But for coming in, Tommy, and we've been manipulated our whole lives through the school system, we're doing pretty darn good. Consider figuring out what potentially is going on here, having coming in completely blind. So the game is going to throw 1,000 different clues at these generator beings, hidden in plain sight, hidden in a friggin' comic book, or in a Star Trek episode, or in a movie. And can they put these pieces together, these clues, to help them remember? Or understand who they are, understand what's truly going on here. And I think that's the ultimate game here. If we understand it, if we so much so, I'm not going to say too much here. I'll talk about it more on free voice. If we truly understand the situation here, then that might be the win. And they have to play. There's rules. It has to be shown in movies. It has to be shown in comic books. The retrocausality language comes through the music. All these clues have to be here. And the creeps are playing their role. Can they keep it hidden? Can those that expose it, can we put them in little pens potentially? And then can we say they're the boy that cried wolf? And even though they're coming into an understanding of who they really are, they've been attached with all the ridiculous conspiracy that they've cried wolf about, which is all part of the fraud and deception. But from our family's perspective and friends' perspective, they think we're completely crazy and paranoid and this and that. And Tony, the last email Tony sent me, my friend Tony, is like, "You're paranoid. That's not what I was talking about, the Scion or the airbag issue or whatever. You're paranoid." I will never be able to lose that stigma. I will never be able to lose that stigmata with our friends and we'll never be able to drop that. So from the creep's perspective, if we really hit on to some really out there breakthrough shat, they could say, then we're so destroyed in the eyes of the people around us that we won't be believed anyway. So the wolf is finally coming, and we know which direction it's coming from, and we know how to stop it. The wolf's really coming this time. And where are the boy and the girl? And that's very insensitive to put it in those two, limited to those two. I'd like to bring in a whole list from New York State, but we'll leave it alone. We've cried it so many times, and the wolf, there ain't no wolf out there, and in a way there has been, but there hasn't been. I mean, we will tell people around us what happened at the 7/11 2001 A Space Odyssey, but then behind that is this evil cabal, and they just can't see it. They don't see it. So we're the boy and girl that cried wolf, but this time, we are really going to be able to identify it in the right way. But let's say through big thinking like this, nobody, because we've been put in such an outcast box, nobody's going to believe it when we finally get it right. And if anybody's saying, well, who cares what these other people believe? I agree. I think it's much more important whatever we are. Maybe people here are not all the same type of incarnation or entity. It's more important, at least right now, that we see how we're being used and played. And we do the Vin Diesel in the diner. I don't play this game any longer. And if you're running around doing all the stuff I'll give you a great example. Here's a great example just popped into my head. It's going around the truth community right now, the catchy song, "Don't Mess with 666" or whatever. Here's how it works, guys. Let me just pause and make sure I'm getting that right. It's "Watch Out for 666." And somebody sent this to me, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago. And I'd never heard of it. And Matt, check this out. Some music video from the 90s predicts all we're going through now. Chip in the brain, chip under the arm, mark of the beast, New World Order. It mentions things, all those sorts of things. And I'll check it out if I have time. And then the next day, 2 people email it to me. Then the next day, I get another email. And then I don't have to put even 5 seconds of research into it. When it comes that quickly and it's going viral, then I know it's a system manipulation. Now, if there's somebody I trust that will tell me that I remember this, Matt, from 1990 or 89 or whenever it was produced, I remember seeing this as a kid, I'll believe you. But to me, it's when a lot of times when things like this come into our community and they go viral and they look old, it was probably made like last month. But even if somebody says, no, Matt, I remember this, it doesn't matter. Then they make long-term plans, right? 50 to 100 years is nothing for these creeps. It's an inhuman level of planning and patience. I'll believe you. Maybe you do remember it from 1990 or whatever, but it was made in 1990 specifically to be used now. Okay, that's how long in advance they plan. They might float it out, make sure a tiny percentage knows about it. Say this was a real band that put this out in 1990s. I remember, Matt, in high school it was real. Then it was made then, but to be used now. It's still, either way, a complete system manipulation. It wants somebody sending it to me, then me making a video about it and passing it along. Do not pass it along because, Matt, aren't you? I need to talk about it with you. I'm asking you not to pass it along because I know this system wants it passed along. And Matt, why would it want people to pass this along? It's showing all of the really nefarious and dark things that this system has grown into, predicted in the 90s. That could get people to think. I don't know exactly why, but I'm 100% confident when something hits like this and it goes viral, it was meant to. So if I don't know what's going on, but I still have that belief set, then I will say I will not ever pass it along. And guys, we think big here. It's not like, did I really get anybody listening to this to send it around to their whole email distribution list? Don't pass it along because that's what it wants. We still have to talk about this stuff. This was offered up to me recently. Jane Child, the video, Welcome to the Real World. She also had, what was that other song? Jane Child, Don't Wanna Fall in Love. That's the poppy one, so people buy the album. It's just fun. There's no truth message here, you crazy nut jobs. Welcome to the real world. Fact is often much stranger than fiction. No danger, but ain't no way to run a universe. I'm done singing. But guys, the point of this, and to end on this segment, is this is a gigantic game here, this reality. It's a gigantic wake-up game. In this corner, over here, let me do the Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble! In this corner over here, weighing in at 40,000 times more than Jabba the Hutt, all the minions, the dark controllers. I don't. What else? It's not Nilk, right? That's why I call it not Nilk, because I don't want to use the word controller. The screen, they've got buttons and levers. They've got lower level minions. These puppets that come out and are used like Kurt Cobain and Jane Child and H.G. Wells, and they've got minions that span the whole gamut over here. And that's what's in this corner. In this corner over here is you and me, and real spiritual generator beings are over here in this corner. And the goal of the creeps over there in Jabba the Hutt's corner and all the minions and all the Barack Obamas is very simple, is to hide these people from understanding their true nature. It's that simple. And there's rules here, again, let's get ready to rumble. There's a ref saying no hitting below the belt, come out, touch gloves. There's rules. And one of the rules is, okay, you people that come in blind, Tommy, deaf, dumb, and blind kid, you can sure play at me pinball, but you're not going to get any information as to who you really are and what you need to understand. But as creeps over here, and we're going to play our games, the one of the rules here is it's going to be embedded in thousands of different sources of art and media and videos. And Jane Child, you'll see that the name is even inverted as it comes up. She's just these people that present these one-hit wonders have no idea what they're doing for the system. She didn't write that song. She didn't write those lyrics fact is often much stricter than fiction, no danger. She didn't write it. She has no clue. She's happy to take her 15 minutes of fame, grow her hair even longer, and move on. I mean, never could figure it out when I watched it in high school. It's like she should have been on a Seinfeld episode. She really hot or really really unattractive? I would go back and forth like that Seinfeld episode. But the creeps, generally, some of them I think understand their role. Most of them don't, of course. But they're here to block us from understanding who we are. But one of the rules here, the message is going to be in movies, art, music, and it's going to be endless, and it's going to come at us endlessly. And, somebody like sitting you down in that fictitious example after you die, which I have to revise, the first conversation after a failed life and all that. And a lot of people I do argue with me, Matt, there is no failing in life. Fine, we'll talk about that some other time. It's like sitting down in a chair and said, you dumb mother effers. We gave you thousands of clues to help you understand yourself through all sorts of media, and you ignored all of it, you dumb ass mother. So we're not ignoring it anymore. It's everywhere. And, let's hope in this gigantic, it's a game or potentially a race against time. Will the creeps and the people in this Jabba the Hutt corner continue to be able to hide these spiritual beings from themselves? Or will they finally have an understanding and win? I mean, the past civilizations, whether you think they were here or not, but what happened to them? It could be just a part of this reality script, but assuming there was an ancient Egypt race or an ancient Lemurian race or an Atlantis or even something like the Mayans or the Aztecs, these ridiculous stories about, Magellan and, Cabaron getting off the boat, just shooting them all and killing them all. It's all ridiculous stories. These past civilizations, maybe they morphed out of here because they won. Maybe they morphed down the Pope's abyss because they lost, But this isn't intentional one-eye symbolism. This is it's called the Ken Burns effect. As I scroll up, you will eventually see her other eye. I hope the nose earring is not too offensive to people. Still, again, hot or not, if I was doing a hot or not website, I would start with Jane Child because it's going to be 50-50 right down. Sorry. So it's a gigantic game. Maybe it is a race against time. Can these people have a final general understanding of who they truly are, spiritually, etc., and they morph out of here and win? Or the creeps will have kept them over a certain amount of time from understanding who they are. And that's where we get into breaking the rules. Doesn't it seem like you put a chip into somebody so they can't think right, you put other things into people or chemicals or whatever so they can't think right, or you physically kind of tie them down, then the first thing we need to do, if we're part of, it's like why people are asked to vote. Like they were asked to vote so they get your buy-in. Then you're complicit with it. Then it can continue. The first thing we have to do is say, if you believe these groups have broken the rules, then I do believe they've gone too far and have broken the rules. Then that's an instant win from our perspective. Like I said, if somebody comes in here and just throws me down and does whatever to me against my will, fine. It's an instant win for me. It's an instant win because this place is about dooming yourself, having to make choices that doom yourself. It's an instant win if it's done against my will. Well, who says so? I said so. And if I realize that, it's all that matters. So, guys, let's keep thinking along these lines. I don't have all the answers, of course, but this type of thinking is a lot more productive than, running around looking for the next ex-Pfizer executive out there trying to blow whistles. Thanks.